In this video, you are going to witness the clash happen between Alireza Firouzja versus Vishy Anand from the Global Chess League 2024. We have an epic battle happen between these two players, and by the end of the video, you are also going to learn the Jobava London opening with the white pieces, and you're definitely going to play this opening in your tournament games. So I don't want to waste any further time, so let's start. So we are playing with the white pieces, Alireza is playing with the white pieces and he opens the game with one knight to c3. Already a very uncommon move. We have d5 by Vishy Anand, d4 by Alireza, knight f6 and now we have bishop to f4. The game has been transposed into the Jobava London. We have c5, e3 and now we have the move c into d4. So what's the point of putting the knight on c3 in the Jobava London? So usually the idea is to play knight b5 and go for the c7 square. For example, after e3, if black plays knight c6, it's already a blunder after knight b5. You can't stop knight c7. You have to play, you have to play e5, but then you just give up the pawn and white is simply better. So that's why knight c6 is already a mistake, I would say. So we have cd by Vishy Anand. Takes, and now we have the move a6. A very good way to neutralize the knight on c3. You are basically taking away the b5 square from the knight, and now basically the knight on c3 is not doing anything on c3. If you try to play knight c6, knight b5, and once again knight c7 is coming up. So after e5, you can already take over here, and after you move your knight, I can take the d5 pawn because I can win the queen back, and I'm already 2 pawn up and completely winning the game. So that's why knight c6 is once again a complete mistake in this position. So in the game we had a6 by Vishy Anand and now we have the move knight to f3 by Firouzja. And now we have bishop to g4 by Anand. So now there are many options to be played in this position. Discussing what happens if black plays bishop f5. Because it looks a fine square for the bishop. Now we are going to play knight to e5, centralizing our knight. And now if black tries to play knight c6, a very common way to continue the game. Now the idea is to play g4 in this position, attacking the bishop. And you can't really take because the g4 is already protected by the knight and the queen. So for example, if black plays bishop e4, I can play f3 and already h4 and white is already better in this position. h5 is coming up and the position is already winning for white. So going back a bit, if bishop g6 is played, white can still play h4 in this position. h5 is coming up and white once again have a better position. So the only way for black is to continue to take the knight, d into e5 and now both the pieces are hanging. So black is having two options to capture the pawn with the bishop or with the knight. If black captures with the knight, we have h3, kicking the knight back to the only square black has and now simply taking the pawn on d5 and white is simply better in this position. So going back a bit, in this position, if black plays bishop into g4 at the place of knight g4, now we have the move f3 in this position, attacking the bishop and the knight. Knight comes to h5, we take the bishop, and now we have the move queen to d4, attacking the knight. The knight moves up and now we have queen to a4 check, not capturing the pawn but giving a check. Black is having the only way to play queen d7 because b5 is already met with knight b5 and it's winning. Takes bishop b5 and the game is over. So going back a bit, queen d7 is the only way. But now bishop b5 once again, you have to take, you lose the rook, and after knight d8, just long castle, and white is simply better in this position. So going back, bishop f5, that's why after bishop f5 we have knight e5, and it's already very hard for black to continue the position. So we have bishop g4 by Vishy Anand, h3 and now Vishy Anand decides to take on f3. So what happens if black goes back with the bishop? We can already play g4, bishop goes to g6 and now we have knight to e5. And after knight e5, for example, if black plays h6, we can already take over here followed by bishop d3, which is completely a better position for white. So in this position, if black tries to play e6, now already after h4, h5 is coming up. And just tell me a good way for black to continue this position. And after h5, white is just better in this position. Knight e4 can be met with h5, takes, bishop e4, f3. It looks like the bishop is trapped, but black is having this f6 idea, kicking the knight. If knight d3, black can take the knight. So we are going to play the move knight to c4, take over here, and after pawn takes, white is simply better in this position. And yeah, that's it. That's how you can continue the position, but it's extremely sharp if only if your opponent knows how to continue the position with the black pieces. But instead, after bishop h5, at the place of bishop h5, Vishy Anand decides to take on f3. Queen f3, and now we have knight to c6 attacking the pawn, and here already Alireza decided to make a committal move by playing long castle, protecting the pawn. e6, g4, already expanding on the king side as his king is already safe on the queen side. We have bishop to d6, Vishy Anand trying to trade off bishop pair, and already we can understand a good positional understanding by Alireza Firouzja by playing bishop e3. Now he's keeping the bishop pair in the position alive. So Anand decided to play rook to c8. We have g5, knight d7, and now we have king b1. Just improving the position. After king b1, we have knight to b6. Maybe Vishy Anand's idea is to get the pieces near to the queen side and try to launch an attack. Now we have h4 by Alireza Firouzja. Knight to e7. Maybe Anand's idea is to open up the c file for the rook. Maybe the knight belongs to the f file. So yeah, it looks like a fine position. But now we have bishop f1 once again. Bishop c1. What is the idea? Here after knight e7, there could be some potential exchange sacrifices on c3, which can make the dark or light squares extremely weak for white. So that's why we have bishop c1, so that whenever rook c3 comes, it can be met with queen c3. So now we have knight to c4, and now we have knight to e2 by Alireza Firouzja. A very good understanding positional move played by Alireza Firouzja. So what is the idea of playing the move knight to e2 in this position? So here, black's idea could be to play queen f5, followed by knight a3 check. If you take the knight, now we have rook c3. So you can already sense that the knight on c3 is not really like doing anything on c3. So putting the knight on e2 is a good idea, which have some potential ideas, followed by knight f4, knight h5, attacking the g7, and g6 can always met with knight to f6. So this is a very good idea, and it also allows white queen to simply transfer from the king side to the queen side. We have short castle, h5, rook to c6, and now we have bishop to h3 by Alireza Firouzja. The idea could be to play g6. You can't really take with the f pawn because e6 is hanging. So we have bishop b8 by Anand defending the pawn, and now we have knight to f4, getting all his pieces on the king side. And there could once again be some potential sacrifices on e6. Queen to b6, and now we have rook to d3 by Alireza Firouzja. Maybe the idea could be to put the rook to b3 defending the king. We have bishop takes, queen takes, and now we have knight to d6. And finally we have h6 by Firouzja. So Firouzja decided to went in with h6, and now Anand made the first mistake of the game by playing the move g6 in this position. He should have played rook c8, because here if white tries to take over here, the c2 is falling and black is better. So white have to play queen e5, threatening mate in 1, which can be met with knight e8 defending everything. And after rook b3, queen goes back c3, white is having a fine position. You can't really trade the queens because it gives white already an advantage because of the bishop pair and having like all the space he needs on the king side. So definitely this position is good for white, but black can keep the queens on the board and this is a playable position. But g6 was simply a mistake, because now we have queen to f6, threatening mate in 1. And now we have knight to f5. You can't play knight over here defending the mate, but because you are losing the knight over here, so you have to play knight f5, take over here, take over here. You have to take with the knight to defend the mate in 1. And now we have rook f3. So now Alireza's idea is to simply take the knight, and if you take back, it's a mate in 1. So the only way for Anand to defend this idea is to play e5, attacking the queen and sacrifice the pawn. Rook over here, sacrifice another pawn, and now we have rook d8. So now talking about the position, Alireza is having 7 pawns and Anand is having 5 pawns. And okay, Anand is going to get the 1 pawn back. We have queen trade, and now we have rook to d1. So Alireza is a pawn up with having more space on the king side, and definitely this position is better for Alireza Firouzja. We have rook d6, and now we have a very strong move played by Alireza, which is rook to e3. So, like, you can also play rook d3, which is also a fine move, but the idea of rook e3 by Firouzja was to play, for example, if your opponent tries to play something like b5. Now, my idea is to play b3. Now, bishop a3 is coming up, followed by rook e7, and maybe, who knows, bishop b2 covering all the dark squares. This position is already better for white, like winning, I would say. So that's why we have knight e6, and now we have, like, Alireza decided to trade one pair of the rooks, and now we have rook b3, attacking the b7 pawn. Rook to d7. So, like, if you try to play b5, it's already a bad idea, because, like, there is a saying in the world of chess that, like, if you try to push your pawns, it only creates weaknesses. So after b5, it can easily be met with c4, takes, check, and after rook b6, you are losing the a5 pawn, and this pawn is going to roll down the board and eventually going to win the game for white. So that's why we have rook d7 by Anand, a4, f6, and now we have g into f6 by Firouzja, which was not the best decision. He should have played rook to b6, I believe, attacking the knight and the pawn. The only move for black is to play rook king f7, and now playing f4, allowing takes, and this position is already better for white, because to be true, black is having no play on the, like, on any side of the board. The king is extremely passive up. You can't move the rook from the 7th rank because the pawn is falling up, and white can just focus on expanding on the queen side now, which is completely winning. But allowing to take, and this allows Anand to activate his king, which he does. And now after bishop e3, we have g5. Here, Anand should have played knight e8, protecting the pawn and trying to make a fortress. And now Vishy Anand can actually activate his rook. But instead he played g5, and now we have c5. And once again, he was having the idea of knight d8 stopping c6. But instead he played knight to f4, which allowed Firouzja to play c6, takes, and not capturing the c pawn, but the a pawn, and eventually making a pass pawn. Now we have rook d6, a5, taking the pawn, rook a8, check. This position is completely winning for Alireza because Anand can't really stop this pawn push. Knight to d5, we have a6, takes, rook to h4. Pawn push can be met with a rook check and kind of blocking the pawn, though it's completely winning still. But instead, Alireza played rook to f8 check. And after rook f8 check on the move number 47, Anand decided to resign the game. Why? Because after rook f8 check, if you try to move your king anywhere, my idea is to play king b3. And now you can't play rook f4. And if you try to stop this pawn now, I can already play a7. And you can't really stop this pawn. And I'm going to make the queen and the game is over. So this is why after rook f8 check, Anand decided to resign the game. And I would say a perfect game, like a nearly perfect game, once again played by Alireza Firouzja, which already displays how he has improved from his losses. And the opening he played, we can already understand how powerful this opening actually is. The Jobava London, which comes with various ideas, such as, who knows, after bishop h5, you are having g4, knight e5, and some aggressive stuff with h4, h5 coming up. And you guys can definitely play this opening in your games, and you're going to earn some heavy points in the tournament games. So yeah, this was a very impressive game played by Alireza Firouzja. So yeah, guys, if you learned anything new from this game, from this opening, the Jobava London, so make sure to like the video, share this video with everyone, and make sure to subscribe to our channel if you are new to our channel, because I'm going to come up with these more interesting content like this. So if you have any question on any particular topic, any particular opening, just tell me in the comment box below, and I'm going to come up with that particular opening. So yeah, till then, stay tuned and keep watching OneShot Chess.